There have been some amazing games over the last 10 years. Welcome back to Game Galaxy, and just like that, in a blink of an eye, 10 years have passed. Most of the time moves really fast, but at the same time, when I think back over the past 10 years, it also has been kind of slow. A lot has happened personally in my life during that 10-year span, and I also played a lot of games during those 10 years, so I wanted to come on today and pick what were the 10 best games I played over the last 10 years. And before we get started and jumping into it, these are just my personal picks. I'm not saying these are the definitive picks, but these are just mine. So right now I'm going to get out of the way. Breath of the Wild is not on this list. Had I played it and completed it, it probably would have been, but I only gave 10 hours to it, so I didn't think it was fair for me to put on this list. But let's not waste time. Jumping in, and the number 10 spot is Far Cry 3. So Far Cry 3 came out, and I was attracted to the graphics and the whole setting of a tropical island. And so I rented it at Redbox, actually, before just buying it, saying, I'll try it, and maybe I won't like it. I was hooked. I played it just for the 2 or 3 days. I don't even know how long I kept it as a rental. I was like, I am really enjoying this. The amount of freedom you could have in how you killed people. Oh, and that's another thing I should say. I used to hate progression in first-person shooter games. I didn't like that you had to level up stuff or stats. It's what turned me off to the original BioShock. I come from the generation of Doom. I just want to shoot people. So that stuff usually turned me off. But what was so great about the story of Far Cry 3 is you are this, rich, privileged California boy that gets thrusted into this horrible situation of being kidnapped by pirates. And in the beginning of the game, you kill somebody, and it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And the slow progression of you unlocking those stats on how to kill better or a new skill, by the end of the game, you're a ruthless killer, full-on John Rambo. And that's what I loved about it. The progression tree felt very organic to the story of how this privileged California boy was turning and changing into a brutal, ruthless killer. I thought that was brilliant, and I really got into it. Far Cry 3 had some amazing graphics. I played it on the PS3, and it was beautiful and gorgeous. The frame rate was below 30 frames, but I didn't care. It was fantastic. Moving on to number 9. There's no image here, really, or text, because I got the special collector's edition of it, but it is Uncharted 3. If this list could have included 2009, Uncharted 2 would have taken the place because that's my favorite Uncharted. But the next best thing in my book is Uncharted 3. The set pieces are just fantastic in this game. Nathan Drake takes so much abuse in this game. And when I was capturing the footage for this episode, I was just like, man, even now on the PS3, these graphics are really, really good. Naughty Dog and the team, over at Sony and Naughty Dog just knew how to really pull the power out of that cell processor and PlayStation 3. It's the crashing plane when you're fighting guys as a plane is getting ripped out and you fly out in the sky, a sinking ship. Just so much of it was blockbuster action that was absolutely incredible, and I love it. Number 8 is Final Fantasy 15. This game was such an emotional ride and such a great experience that I was happy because I, being a big fan of Final Fantasy, had honestly thought the franchise has kind of been dead for a while because kind of what they did with 10-2 and then the 13 games just didn't really seem to appeal to me. And I had a good friend that said, trust me, don't do the 13 games. They're just you run straight and press X to win kind of thing. And I was a little nervous about playing the demo and kind of changing the way combat would go to this more real-time Kingdom Hearts-esque type of combat. But when I got the real game, it wasn't anything like that little Platinum demo they gave me. I fell in love with this kind of combat and how it works between attacking and defending and that whole flow. And I thought, you know what? As much as I love turn-based combat, this is probably the future of RPGs and keeping them interactive for today's gaming sense. And I absolutely loved the story you go on and the bonds between all of the characters. The only thing I have to complain about is The DLC chapters are so fantastic, and that is content that should have been in the original game. It really sucks that you have to spend extra money and get that part of the story after the fact. And they added so much stuff to this game later that I didn't fully get to experience. Just little things like riding your chocobo wherever you wanted. And sorry, not riding the chocobo, but they added other things like driving off-road and all that. And I felt like it was kind of a stab in the eye to first day supporters and adopters of this game. It felt like we kind of played a beta. The next game, I don't have a physical item to show you, but it's on this list because this game changed the way that I thought about indie games, and that is To the Moon. You've heard me, for longtime viewers of the channel, recommend this game over and over and over. I used to harp on it constantly. To the Moon is an incredibly emotional 16-bit style adventure game for the PC, made by Kangao, one man and a small team of people. And the music and the emotion is just so incredible. The idea of the story is that there's a company out there, kind of like the movies Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, where they go in and erase your memories. This is where they can go into your mind and plant memories in the dying person's mind and have it come to fruition. So those things that people regret on their deathbed, like, oh, I wish I could have done this, or I should have tried harder at this, they'll implant fake memories as if it actually happened, and they'll get that satisfaction of fulfillment. The only catch is, for whatever how the technology works, when that feeling of fulfillment happens and that recollection, they will die and their life is over. So it's a little trade-off kind of thing, and the patient will give them permission to do this kind of thing. And so there's a lot of great ideas explored here, a lot of emotion. I cried at the end of it, and also a lot of discussion of like, is what we're doing ethical in a way. But fantastic game. And since then, I changed my mind on how I looked at indie games. And since then, I've been surprised over and over and over again at the kind of creativity and art that comes out of independent productions. And so if you were like me, that thought indie games were just like the crappy wannabe pixel art games, that is not true at all. Don't turn your nose up to independently developed games, because those are the people that are having the freedom to be creative, unlike major studios that just want to pump another Call of Duty down your throat. Which, hilariously, leads me to number 6, which is the best Call of Duty game ever, because it has the best story, and that's Call of Duty Black Ops. This game blew me away. Like, it's arguable if some of the older Modern Warfares would be better than this, but I don't think so. The story of this game was absolutely off the charts. Some of the best characters as well, like Frank Woods, your buddy that you run on through missions with, who is definitely Rambo inspired. But this is another game that, capturing the footage off of the PlayStation 3, I was like, man, these graphics are really good, still to this day, running at 720p and everything. I just loved it. But this gave a story none other than just amazing. I don't want to spoil any of the story, but it was cool era as well, being in Vietnam. Highly recommend Call of Duty Black Ops. I know it can feel like there's way too many Call of Duty games and they're not good or can't have good stories. But if you have not played Black Ops, you absolutely must. It is definitely a treat, and from the golden era of Call of Duty. The next game is from my favorite game developers of all time, and that is Quantic Dream's Heavy Rain. Whew. I don't remember. It was Indigo Prophecy, Fahrenheit, for those in Europe and elsewhere, that I saw first. But when Heavy Rain came out, I don't know if it was a demo or I saw it at my brother's the first time, I was just floored, because I love the idea of a cinematic game. And this was like nothing I had ever seen before. Now, Indigo Prophecy had it, but this was... You have to understand, Heavy Rain's graphics were unmatched at the time. There was nothing as good as Heavy Rain. I don't even think PC came close, because when I think back to when this was released, I think Half-Life 2, maybe. And they had still like goofy video game faces. This was doing a realistic approach, and they just looked amazing. And again, I'm repeating myself like a broken record, but the graphics still hold up for this game, even if you play the PS3 version. You can get it on PS4 now, so that's how you should play it if you haven't. But this game was just full of mystery and murder and tracking down people, and just the overall mood of it was so mature and cool. And when I finally got my PlayStation 3, this was the first game I ran out and had to play. I didn't even have any, I just played through it straight, and this is one of my favorite Quantic Dream games of all time. I love them so much, and I'm excited to play Detroit. I can't believe I still haven't gotten to that yet, but I will. So highly recommend Heavy Rain, and definitely get yourself, there's the Quantic Dream collection for PlayStation 4. I believe it comes with Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit. So all three of those fantastic games for pretty cheap, and you're going to get a good deal on that. So after that comes, we're kind of hitting a motif here, is that I'm a big story guy, and I like stories that leave impact. And this may be one of the greatest video game scripts of all time, and that's Batman Arkham City. This game, as a game, is incredible, but the story was so expertly crafted, and I believe it was Paul Dini who wrote this story, which was a writer on Batman animated series as well. And dude, Arkham Asylum was an amazing game, but when I played Arkham Asylum, the first Batman game, I was like scared, because that game had a creepy feel, and it grounded Batman. He was always running through these corridors of this asylum. He wasn't able to get the drop on this. In Arkham City, you were open and you were freed up to be the Bat, to be the Dark Knight, to be the Stalker, swooping down on guys. You felt powerful. You felt like the Batman, and it was so good. The voice actors, of course, we got Kevin Conroy, from the voice actor of Bruce Wayne and Batman from the animated series, as well as Mark Hamill doing Joker. Again, there's a lot of Batman the animated series love here in all of the Arkham games, and Arkham City is incredible. I played, the Catwoman DLC as well. It was just such a great world, and I think the story, also another one where I almost cried at the end of it, because it was incredibly emotional and just poured out love for Batman. So Arkham City, highly recommend playing this game in any way, shape, or form that you can. Number 3. This was the second game after Heavy Rain on the PlayStation 3 that I had to get, and that was Red Dead Redemption. This is one of the most perfect video games of all time. And before I get on to talk about what I loved about this one, I think this one is better than Red Dead Redemption 2. Everybody is, head over heels about how beautiful it was, and it is. And I haven't finished number 2 yet, but I have played quite a lot of it, where I think it missed the mark. In the short time I got footage for this, playing this for this video, the short amount of time that I did that, I said, this just feels right. And it has that mix and mood of that rockstar humor, but also being cool. And just take a look at this scene.
You that fella from the train company?
No, I'm from Fort Mercer.
Fort Mercer? You them one of them Williamson boys?
Calm down.
Go on, shoot him, mister. Shoot him.
Come what, you getting cute with me, boy?
What's going on here?
I got me one of them Williamson boys.
I got me one of them idiots who give marshals a bad name.
You see what I mean there? John Marston is cool and a cool main character, but you also have those like slightly quirky rockstar-esque characters like that little deputy in the sheriff's office. And I thought that was missing from Red Dead 2, and that Red Dead 2 took itself way too seriously. But John Marston was a great character. I believe, unless I'm screwing up history, the game's story arc kind of follows the story of Billy the Kid, where you are trying to track down your old gang members that for the law, essentially, in hopes that you're going to be pardoned. And just being in the Old West, but Grand Theft Auto style, was just fantastic. Their graphics, again, were beautiful. The gameplay, the gunplay, all fantastic. And the voice acting is absolutely superb. Rockstar always kills it. This is a game I just wish they would either bring to PC or, even better, bring it to the new consoles. Give us a higher up HD version. I do think if you have an Xbox One, you can download a high resolution texture pack and put the 360 version of the game in and play it at a higher res. And that's really, really cool. And definitely envy Xbox players out there, because I don't have an Xbox One. Next game, again, we're returning to our friends at Naughty Dog, and it feels almost cliche, but you have to give respect to The Last of Us. Oh my goodness. You know, I said Arkham City may have the best video game script of all time, but it might actually be The Last of Us, because again, I am not spoiling anything for you, but my jaw hit the floor and I shouted for joy at how awesome the ending of this game was. Goosebumpingly smashed to black awesomeness. It was like a John Carpenter movie ending. It was so perfect. I was like, I cannot believe that they did that. The ending of this game is unbelievably amazing. The gameplay was like nothing we'd seen before. I don't think we've seen AI like that, where there's cover-based shooting mechanics in this, but you cannot sit behind one place and just fire at bad guys. They will look for you, and oftentimes you need to kind of I remember being trapped in a store and I'm running out of bullets and I'm having to try to circle around the store as they're looking for me so I can get the drop on them and hit them with a board or punch them because I'm out of bullets. And that was fantastic. And another thing that The Last of Us does great that other games that try to do it don't do it well is that you don't always have to fight. If you can sneak past monsters and guys completely. And that's what I loved about this. It felt more realistic in the terms of, if this was this survival horror world that I'm in, I wouldn't always be trying to fight. I would try to hold on to my resources and only do it when necessary. And The Last of Us allowed you, if you took your time, to move past. I was so enamored with this the first time I played it. I immediately, after the credits rolled, I started a new game and I put it on hard because normal wasn't hard enough for me. I wanted that more of a challenge, and I beat it on hard just right after another. And I've often thought maybe I'll do the next difficulty up because I really like those moments where it's like you can't fight or you need to really think about the decisions you're going to make. The next game is our number one slot. Before I do, I'm going to mention other honorable mentions, and that would be Super Mario Odyssey. Fantastic game, wonderful return to Mario that we kind of missed in the GameCube era with Sunshine, and it was kind of a return to that Super Mario 64. It's just loads of fun. So Super Mario Odyssey is on there. And then the next game, if I didn't talk about To the Moon, which I think was so important, it would have been on this list. And that is the first Walking Dead game from Telltale. Another expert achievement for video game writing, especially the ending. Again, I was floored after the ending of that game that I was like, I can't believe writing is getting good and in some ways better than movies. I thought it was fantastic. So the number one game of the last 10 years that I have played, maybe the best video game I've ever played in my entire life. And I'm contemplating doing an entire video dedicated to this game, but that is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. What can I say about this game? I have 100% completed everything, got a platinum trophy on the main story, and I'm currently in the Dragonborn DLC right now as I'm making this video. And I've played about 260 hours, and I'm not bored of it. I don't think I've done that with any other video game where I've spent that much time, and I still want to play this. I wish I was playing right now. That's how much it is. And it's such an achievement for me because I'm someone who was turned off by Western RPGs. I didn't like that it was overcomplicated all the time. There's all these stats, or your attacks were based on invisible dice rolls because they're all based on Dungeons and Dragons, where I'm swinging my sword in a game, but it didn't actually connect with you because I had a bad dice roll. I hated that stuff. I was more of a JRPG guy, where if you put in the time and you train, you succeed. And Skyrim kind of simplified that Western approach and maybe pulled in a little JRPG-ness to it, but kind of simplified it and streamlined it. And maybe that made a lot of fans upset, but it brought people like me into it. And what it does is has such incredible world building. I have not seen a game that has world building to this degree, where every NPC has a name, has a history, has a family history, has a job, has a purpose. And I went into this not playing any Elder Scrolls games before, and little by little, through books, through talking, I start to feel like I'm an aficionado of the lore of Elder Scrolls, and that's what's fantastic. And what's great about it is my experience with this game may not be your experience. There's an overall story arc of, a civil war within Skyrim between people who support the Empire, and Skyrim wants to be independent, and oh my god, there's a killer dragon on the loose. That's the main story arc. But everything else is open-ended. There is so much you can do in any order that you want to do. So your story may not be my story. And what was so incredible was all the other stuff you can do. For instance, I'll tell you a brief thing of what I did. I did a quest for a goddess or a Daedric prince. I'm not sure what it was. She rewarded me with a sword that could cause undead enemies to explode. And it was the coolest sword ever. It looked awesome. And it was called the Dawnbreaker. Awesome name for a sword. And at the same time, after I got that sword, I had heard rumors of this group of vampire hunters over yonder, let's say. And they were looking for people to join up with them. So I went and decided, I was like, being a vampire hunter? That sounds awesome. I went and joined them, and their faction is called the Dawn Guard. So I went and I joined the Dawn Guard, the group of vampires, with my sword, the Dawnbreaker, and we took on a group of vampires that were holed up in a Castlevania-esque castle off the north shore of Skyrim. And it was just incredible because my best time with this game was all of the Dawn Guard stuff. Now, Dawn Guard was a DLC add-on for Skyrim, but if you buy these special editions versions, either on Steam or the consoles, it comes with all that content. So I'm roping it into being a part of Skyrim, and honestly, being a part of the Dawn Guard was my favorite experience I've had thus far with this game, because while there is that overall story arc of the Civil War, there was this other unknown war that was happening between us and the vampires, trying to keep the people of Skyrim safe. And oh man, just incredible. And again, the freedom of choice. Multiple times I had the option to become a vampire myself and betray the Dawn Guard. So the amount of storytelling is limitless, and I imagine scripts for that game, I don't know how, their flowcharts must be off the chart with how many decisions you have. So there are a lot of open world games and a lot of games that'll take your time, but there are some things that should not be missed. And if you were like me, that kind of turned off by either games that give a lot of time commitment or Western RPGs like I was, I implore you.
Implores you. I implores you.
I implore you to give Skyrim a chance and play this game, because I feel like this game, as re-released and talked about and loved as possible, it's for a reason. It stands as, I believe, the best video game I have ever played. So those were my top 10 games that I have played in the last 10 years. You know, looking at this list, it's funny because a lot of these titles seem to be from the earlier part of the decade, and a lot of them are PlayStation 3 games as well. I don't know if that is because I had more time back then, it's likely, or if that was some of the better content. I think it was more, I probably had more time, because I haven't played some of the heavy hitters on the later end. Like, I haven't done Horizon Zero Dawn, haven't done the new God of War. I'm always playing catch up, and I'm always a little bit behind. But even if I were to consider those, when I was looking at this list that I wrote down, I was trying to say, does this all deserve to be here? And my answer every time I would read, I'd go Skyrim, The Last of Us, Red Dead. I'd say, absolutely, you have to mention them. So those were the top 10 games I played over the last decade, and I would absolutely love to hear your guys' lists down in the comments. And take your time doing it, because you'll be surprised as you'll think back. You'll be like, oh yeah, that too, or this too, or oh, I gotta take this off for this, or this has to be there. Let me know either way down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any videos in the future, and I'll see you in 2020.